Welcome to another session of the Black Male Impact. Today we have with us Dr. James Winfield. And this is a part of the series that for this month, March, um, where we'll be talking about leadership impact and how we can make a difference as Black men. But before we get into the conversation itself, I just want to share a little bit about Dr. Winfield. He has been in education for over 15 years in higher education. He's also a first gen student advocate. And we need advocates for the first generation students because what happens sometimes as a first generation student, we may not know all the things that is expected of us. He's also a speaker and an access and success leader. But I know before we get into the conversation today, I will just ask Dr. Winfield to share a little bit more about himself and some of the things that he's doing so you can get a bit more understanding of who he is. But before you say anything, Dr. Winfield, for those who are here with us, I want to say thank you. Um, Thank you for being here with us. Please share the link with your connections because I know there will be insights, knowledge, and perspectives that we all can apply to our lives. So, Dr. Winfield, just thanks for being here. But please go ahead and share with the listeners more about yourself so they can know who you are before we get into this conversation today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Cross, first and foremost. Good to be with you again and to just discuss stories and journeys of success. Once again, my name is Dr. James Winfield, 15 years of higher education experience in areas of student success, leveraging academic support, first year experience. And as mentioned, I'm a staunch first generation student advocate. That is an identity that I have, and the challenges and points of pride that I had throughout my experience. I think that those narratives deserve to be shared among other students so that they can feel and know that they belong in a space of education, because often we're not given those resources and information. And if it stays close knit, like we have to just ensure that there's more of the conversations and the trickle down of those resources to those students and those learners. So I'm a Birmingham, Alabama native. I'm proud to be from Birmingham, Alabama. Inslee specifically is a neighborhood that I grew up in. And that plays a huge part of my identity, as well as Birmingham, Alabama, as many know, was one of the main arteries of the civil rights movement. And that helped to form a lot of my identity formation and how I see myself in the world, but also seeing the progress that I can assist in and ensuring that others get opportunities as well.
Well, thank you, for sharing that. Although I didn't plan to ask you a question on, Black history, but as you mentioned, the civil rights movements and how it helps you to be the person that you are today. So, was there anyone in specific that stood out to you from Alabama when it comes to civil rights movement?
There are numerous, but this one is related, and I know often used, but Dr. Martin Luther King. Solely because I remember when I was a child going to the Civil Rights Museum in Birmingham, Alabama, and I remember my first trip there. My aunt actually bought me a pen that has Dr. King's face on it, and I make it a conscious effort to wear that every year on MLK, along with the book of quotes that I still have to this day, and I've had that since I was 7 years old. I think about Dr. King's quote about just insufficient funds and the checks being cashed as far as it stands for equity, and that being the kind of bait and switch for people of color and poor people. So that just resonates with me specifically. And I know that people typically say Dr. King, but I'm a true fan and a follower of Dr. King's work. Like the I Have a Dream speech is adjacent. You can't see it, but it's on my wall. And just knowing that those words, and also his mantra, not only for those who were on the margins, but those who just wanted the opportunity. Like it spans so far as the movement for access and equity, and he was at the staunch forefront of it.
I see why now. You are really an advocate for the first gen students because they always need, especially those who are coming from a more challenging environment, access. I mean, that have the access to get in to the program and even to achieve success. Because one of the things that I've found out, working with first year students, it's not that they lack the cognitive ability, but they just need that additional support, sometimes even to develop the confidence, so they can, tap into their own greatness. So that's great work that you're doing because we know sometimes first gen students are the ones who sometimes fail, and drop out because they don't have a blueprint before to follow. No one in their environment have achieved college success. So it can be a bit challenging. So that's great work that you're doing. So with the theme, for our conversation today, transformation through intentional impact. And that's what you're doing, and that's what we want to see more of, especially when it comes to us as Black men. So, my first question to you, which is going to fall under personal transformation and growth. So, the first question for you is, can you share a defining moment in your life that sparked your journey toward intentional impact?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of related to my field of work. I would have to say that interacting with someone that just kind of show me that this is a profession that I'm in. I didn't pull back and think about the fact that I was in college at the time, yet I didn't know that there was a pathway to actually being an administrator. I was just so disconnected from it. I knew that there were services and things there, but couldn't really fathom the fact that this was a profession. So my dean of students and undergraduate at Auburn University was Dr. Kent Smith. And Dr. Smith was just always accessible for me. And I truly felt like he invested a lot in me and many other students at my alma mater. But it was just the conversations and approachability, and he was never too busy to check in with me. And I saw that it was a great relationship. Like it was reciprocity there. So I would make it a point to check in with him, like to make sure that he knew, like, okay, if he asked about my test, I would go in and tell him how I did on the test, even if it wasn't good. But just having that accountability partner and someone to actually show me that, hey, I think you can have a future in the field of higher education. So once I pursued my master's, he was then at another institution and whatnot. I kept in touch. And it was a series of moments, right? And it wasn't until I got into graduate school that I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you really helped me out and were one of the pillars of individuals that helped to show me the way. So just what he gave and what he modeled for students, there are elements of that I seek to give back and replicate when I can. But of course, in my own, unique light and sphere of control, I try to do that. But just those moments, I think about, sitting outside of, waiting on to go in his office to talk to him, or just like chats on the campus or on the concourse. And that really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and I think, especially being a first year student or just being a college student on a whole, sometimes just that one connection can be the difference in staying the course. Because college can get lonely at times, especially if you're not an athlete or have it or part of the fraternity where you have those groups that you can relate to. And sometimes you can be a part of those group and still feel out of place because everyone is not the same. And sometimes it's just to make the connection where you find that affinity in things that are similar so you can be encouraged to stay the course. So it's great to hear that part of your journey, especially those who are here. May can be that person for someone else to make them feel as if they belong in the space that they are in. And as Black men, it's important that we become mentors and examples for those who are coming behind us. Which leads to my next question. Still on the personal transformation and growth, what daily habits or routines do you practice to ensure you're growing and evolving as a leader?
Yeah, that's a strong one, and it changes in different seasons of life. I'm a husband, father, also in alignment with my other roles. So finding that the balance to get to all of those things is always something that you have to think about how you are intentional about. I know for me, it's I have this thing about writing. I have been on an extreme writing kick over the past year and a half, and just taking time to write. And I write my ideas about the first generation student perspective. I write pseudo media blogs about narratives that are in media to show what college life is like, and then also on the professional basis of what takes place in the field and in the literature. I choose to make sure that I write about first gen, first year experience, all of that, and I consistently take time to get my ideas out. Is what I'm getting to. So in doing so, that for my ideas to just live and to not just be in my head, and that's something that I've always worked to do. So I would say the consistent writing and then also staying informed as well, but doing that in balance to where I'm getting the right information when I'm ready to receive it. But then also in that, just taking breaks. Often we don't think to take breaks. We can easily try to push through and plow through. When I can, I try to make sure that I take a step back, reflect on my day, think about what I did, what's upcoming, and then I'll just stick with those. I think that those are some of the behaviors that I'll go ahead and put out there. Of course, the writing, staying informed, reflection, those are some series of buckets of things that I choose to work to be intentional about so that I can make sure that I make space for everything else.
And that's great. They always said the palest ink is stronger than the best memory. So writing out the thoughts, the things you want to accomplish, and even want to share with others to make an impact. Sticks with us or stick with you, I believe, more than just having those thoughts. And one of the things that we all have heard when it comes to achieving goals is to write the things down, things that we want to accomplish, and also the things that we want to share. But when it comes to a leader and making an impact, having clear goals are always important, and the goals that are clear are the ones that we write down. It's not just to think about the things that we want to do, but to write those ideas out. But from your writing and sharing with the public, um, is there anything that you have shared that really stood out to you based on the feedback? I know you may write a lot about first gen, where you find people didn't really know or understand that's happening.
That's a good one. I would say a lot of well, it's not a lot, but some of the things that I've written about there've been conversations about, but it's like just getting it out there in a formalized sense. Like right now, I just released and was fortunate enough to have an article published in Insights on College Transition, and it's about first gen students being supported by faculty and the role that faculty can play. So it really focuses on the lens of instructors and what any kind of teacher or faculty member can do to ensure that they keep it at the forefront, like normalize it, talk about your identity. I think about I went, talking about my I guess former mentor, Dr. Smith, and what he did for me, him being a Black male and telling me about his experiences in college really helped to normalize the challenges that I had. Along with making those connections, like encouraging me to get out of my box. So this is something that individuals should do, like encourage students to get out of their box and connect with other people, whether it's of other cultures or even just affinity, so they can have that commonality, like just the balance and what's required and needed for that student to excel. So really just adding more voice and connection, because there's some general stuff out there, but making it more specific to that narrative is what I've been seeking to do. So that piece has gained a little bit of traction. Is really new, but I've had a couple of colleagues to reach out to me and say they've enjoyed reading that, and it's affirming, and it let them know that they're making the right steps to support their students. Or it's let them know, hey, there's some work that I have to take in order to better support my students and be more equitable.
Oh man, that is great. That equity or being more equitable for the first year student, I think that is really important because again, that can be the difference in them staying in the institution, getting the education to change their life. Because one thing we know and come to understand the power of education, and that it is the greatest equalizer. So helping them to get their fair share of education can really be the difference for them, not only them but also their family and future families. So my next question to you, still on personal transformation: how do you overcome self-doubt and limiting beliefs when striving for transformation?
I have to think about the things that I often tell my students, and that's they are worthy of being in the spaces that they are in. Often it's easy to look at, okay, I may be the youngest, I may not have as many years of experience, and all these different things can really foster doubt. But everyone is coming into a space with some level of something that they don't have, right? And we can't operate on deficits. So the anti deficit mindset that I tout and talk about often when supporting students, regardless of their socioeconomic status, where they grew up, rural or urban, any of these factors that they can see as a deficit. It's a difference, right? It's not a deficit. So I seek to focus on what I do have and what I do bring to the table. My breadth of research, my insights, my experiences, what I've gained from others that have been poured into me. And that allows me to build my, not only my confidence, but my self efficacy in the spaces that I reside.
I think those are important when it comes to overcoming one's self doubt and limiting beliefs. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that question because I want to get into. I know you mentioned something about mentorship. I want to get to that question. Um, so, what role? I know you said mentorship did help you, but I still want to ask that question. What role has mentorship or guidance played in your personal and professional growth to be where you are right now, not just when you were in um, college, making it through those times as a student, but your personal and professional journey?
Yeah. As far as mentorship in my uh, current phase of life, I think about on a I'm like I mentioned, I don't stray away from the fact that I'm a family man, and I have friends and peers who I look at and who I communicate with that have I've respected the way that they have navigated the balance of, professional life and family and trying to manage that. And I pull from them a good bit. So that mentorship at the same level on a personal level has been very helpful, and even on a spiritual level, which is important to me as well. In addition, I look to my fraternity brothers. I have individuals who I communicate with that let me know, that affirm me. Like I was just having lunch with one of my line brothers yesterday, and we were just catching up and just talking about our professional goals, and it was so affirming to talk with him about, although we're in different professions, just trying to excel, trying to be better men, and trying to invest more into others as well, and to model ways like for our families, our communities. So all mentorship doesn't always have to come from someone who's at the top. I have those. I have individuals who are senior level administrators, a few of them that I talk to every now and then to get insights or to just check in. But in addition, it's always great to have that level mentorship that's in line with where you are, because you have individuals that you can grow with. And I was recently a part of an institute back in October through NASPA, and we talked about that. And that was so affirming for me, because I have more individuals who are in line and in level with me that I get more insights from than from that level.
Well, that's great. But as you talk about being affirmed by our peers and being in that space where we talk to other Black men about what we're doing and where we want to go, from your perspective, do you find that Black men, as maybe around you, who may not be a part of your fraternity, do find it difficult or easy to talk about challenges or even to talk about what they want to accomplish?
Yeah, yeah. I think regardless of someone is a part of any affinity group, fraternal organization, whatever it may be, the black male, perspective and challenge is not monolithic, but we have some commonalities and ties that bring us together, right?
Correct.
And with that, there's just so much to unpack there. You have, I would say, more of, I guess, like a distrust of systems at times that tends to be a factor that can be of negative influence for some of us as we go through systems, right? You think about going into a system of education where we talk about the school like to jail pop pipeline, right? That there's data out there to show all of that, making sure that individuals and students know, particularly Black males and men of color, know that they can succeed regardless of whatever circumstance they may be in. You don't have to be the things that you've seen that are of negative influence. I'll take from other organizations and look at what they do to support and provide that mentorship at various levels. So just like I talked about, like in my friendship group, I think that you get mentorship at all types of levels to help enrich your skills. And some of the wisdom that I've gotten are from individuals who didn't go to college. They gave me great life lessons, right, on just character, right? Being a kind person, trying to strive to be, a good father, and modeling that so that others can see that. Like I think about one of my previous roles when I worked at Benedict College, and I had students there that would frequent my office, and I had a couple of young male students that would come in my office and say, like, Mr. Winfield, like Dr. J, it's real good to see, like, I would have my son with me sometimes, and they really respected, just seeing him around, because I didn't stray away from that at all. Like there was a meeting that I had and he had to be there. I set him up with something, but they just enjoyed the fact that they saw me in a human light, and making those taking those opportunities and being that example, as sometimes it doesn't even happen, it's not planned. It could just be organic, right? So it's really hard to map it out, but just really being authentic, being yourself, being genuine, investing, that tends to help break down the walls, is what I'm getting to, that we as Black men can have, because there could be a distrust of systems based upon societal pressures.
Well, that is definitely a fact. Because our experiences are different in the environments that we are in. But as you bring up the students and them, wanting to come into your office, is there anything that stood out from those experiences? Did any of the students say, "Man, because of you, I want to achieve this goal. Because of you, I decided to stay in college." Anything stood out from those experiences? Because one thing that I've heard, that you know when black students see black men, black male students, they tend to find themselves and start to excel, or pursue the goal of something that they may have quit. Sometimes they come and tell you, and sometimes you hear through other peers that, man, because of doc, I pursue this goal. So any students have really shared and said, man, you know what, because I had a conversation with you, I decided to stay.
Yeah, there's one story in particular, and I'll say this: I'm not going to take full credit for this student's journey by any means. This young man he's very talented. I knew he had the opportunity he had it to be successful, but he just needed one opportunity. I had the opportunity to do a TEDx talk, and I talked about this story with one student who came to my office, was very deflated, a first year student, and just wanted to get connected on campus. Was having some challenges in a respective course and thinking about their major. And ultimately, um, the student was not selected for one of the organizations that they aspired to be a part of. So I met with the student and gave them, this rundown of some new organizations that were being started. One in particular that I was like, I really think you would be good at this. And thankfully, in that conversation, I was able to talk to him, and he applied to this group. And at that time, I knew he got into the group, but then by that time, I left that institution. Some years later, I got an email that outlined, like out of nowhere. I'm at my desk and I was typing up some emails, running some data, and then I got an email abruptly from this student. He was able to get my email from one of my former colleagues and just outline that how thankful he was that I sat down with him, that I, told him like, hey, I saw a lot of myself in him, being, a young Black male at a predominantly white institution, just not necessarily knowing where to go, but wanting to connect with people and able to connect with people on a foundational level. And he became student director of that organization, eventually went on to get his master's in higher education and worked in the field for some time. So that was a really rounding moment for me. And I keep saying affirmation. I feel like that's almost a theme of the talk, where he affirmed me that I was in the right profession, doing the right thing, and doing the right work. So I was grateful that he felt that I played a role in his journey and in his story. But as I mentioned, ultimately, it was him. He had the prerequisite skills. He had the foundational knowledge. It was just a matter of just kind of a nudge into getting into one place outside of his comfort zone that he probably didn't even know about.
Well, that you're right. A lot of our young people do have exceptional abilities, but sometimes what they need is the guidance or the affirmation, or just to affirm them and say, yes, you can do it. And once they hear it from someone who they look up to, they are more likely to buy into. And once they buy into it, they just activate what's already within them. And that's one thing that we have to do. We sometimes have to help them to think beyond their limitations, or beyond what they have been conditioned to think based on their environment. Again, they may be coming from an environment where they are the first to come to college or go to college, and they just want someone to tell them, man, you can do this, and that will definitely help change their perspective. So my next question to you, which is on accountability: in what ways do you hold yourself accountable to the goals and impact you want to create? And you can also, tell us, everyone here that's listening, why it's important to hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah. I have a practice of at least yearly, but might do it quarterly too, just to check in and revise. I write my goals, and at the end of the year or some point in the year, I'll check off like, okay, I was able to accomplish this. I was able to, like, one of my goals last year was to write a book chapter. I didn't know how that was going to happen, but thankfully I had a colleague that was writing a book, and that was more of like a 2 year goal. And it happened within months. So I was grateful to have gone through that process, to be a part of one of these institutes that I was talking about, where I can craft my skills and knowledge and learn more about not only the students that I serve, but more about being a better professional. And just some other like personal goals, financial and whatnot as well. So uh, I do that consistently. Dr. Smith, who I mentioned earlier, he used to have this saying that he would say quite often, like, goals that are not written down are merely wishes. And I would make certain that I would do that, to keep a record and to hold myself accountable. And I could revisit those and see the progress that I've made, and then also assess, hey, this is a stretch goal. Like, I may not be able to do this within this time frame, but it's something that I aspire to still do. So just looking at that, and sometimes revising and adding a couple things to those goals is a good practice for me.
So suppose there's an individual that find it hard to hold themselves accountable. What would you tell them?
Don't try to do it all at once. I think that that's where we often tend to lose sight. And I think about organizations that have missions and goals, and they talk about mission creep, how you're able to easily stray away from the focus when you try to do too much and do everything. I think about coming into this field of academia when I was essentially like a generalist in this field. And then I was able to really figure out what are my areas of passion, and that helped me out. I could do a lot of different things, but being able to hone in and figure out what am I actually good at and passionate about was able to help me steer that in a more focused direction, so I didn't feel like I'm pulled in too many different directions.
And that's thanks for that, because you know taking on too much can cause you to not just burn out, but lose interest or becoming overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, you don't do the things that you want to do. So breaking it down can be a great way to make sure we don't give up on the things that we want to do. So I'm going to shift gear a little bit to community and collective impact. So my question to you, my next question is, what do you believe are the biggest challenges Black males face today, and how can we address them?
I guess I'll start with the intrinsic piece. And there can be, and I feel like I probably said this in our previous dialogue, but just for young men to not fall into what societal pressures might tell them that they should be, right? And there is a different norm. There's a new normal, right? And making sure that they see the positive sides of and all the uplift that exists within that, and pulling wisdom from individuals that really have the best interest at heart, and molding that to their lived experiences and where they desire to go. So that intrinsic piece of seeking positivity, not falling into the negative. I mentioned that anti-deficit piece previously, and then the external pressures of just not feeling like you have to do, um, just not taking on the world's burdens, and that's hard. That is so hard, considering times that we could possibly be in, or what someone's current circumstances are, what's surrounding them in their neighborhood, what could be happening nationally, globally, all of that. So, really thinking about the focus of what can I do to make myself better so that I can be of better service to those around me. And just knowing that that causes a ripple effect, because just as I mentioned an example of that one student, you know, who sought me out, and I was intentional of catching up with them and, showing them, hey, this organization over here or this opportunity might be something to look into, but being encouraging at the same time. Have that same zest for life and for others, and look out for one another. I think that that is something that is often negated, is looking at individuals, regardless of who they might be, and showing them a way, or just having a conversation. You never know where it will lead. So being authentic, being genuine, and being supportive.
And that's one thing I think the black male community needs the support from each other, because we can say we want others to support what we're doing to make a difference, but I think the biggest support is supposed to come from us. I don't believe that we should want others to do for us what we can do for ourselves. We need support, but we should be leading the way for the support to move us forward. Once we see others are making a difference, now we should see it as a obligation or responsibility, because once we move forward, or once you move forward, it makes it easier for me to move forward. And if we have that mindset, I think it will increase our participation in supporting each other. So I really glad that you mentioned that, and how important that is for us, especially within the Black community, because I see it as a challenge, because we don't support each other as much as we should. Because if we do, we'll break down a lot of the barriers that are in front of us. It takes numbers, and the world knows that we don't support each other as much as we should. But if we change that narrative, the world will have to take us a bit more seriously, I believe, because now we're not coming with one person speaking up. We're coming with a collective speaking up to the cause that may fit our interests and what we believe will help, especially those who are coming behind us. Which leads me to my next question, which is somewhat tied to the support. I still want to ask it, but how do we, from your perspective, shift from individual success to collective advancement in our communities?
I think it takes a lot of intention. Some of it, I'm not one that likes to align themselves with generational theory, because we can easily get into a mindset to say, oh, well, my generation is better than yours. That's not so much the case, but I recognize the challenges that Gen Z has. And a lot of that is, I think about technology driven. It's the likes, the social media presence, and also in the height of the pandemic, there was a lot of isolation. So there's a lot to take into consideration, and I feel that it's best for the youth to pull back from the urge to just think about just me, right? And I feel like that's something that got to a lot of us, throughout the pandemic and whatnot. And it's a balance, right? Make sure that you are well, make sure that you are good and able to give to another person, but don't forget that next step of giving and supporting that other person. I think it tends to stop with, okay, I'm good, and that's it, right? So we have to take that next step and not forget the other half of it. Check in on that friend, check in on that student, someone you see that that's been struggling. Like, just take that moment to do that, and that will pay dividends, because you never know where someone is and what kind of support that you can provide to them.
Well, and that's a great perspective. Moving from me to we, helping the next person. We have to realize, one thing that I've heard a long time ago, especially when I just started this journey. You can shake someone's hand, but you don't know what's in their heart. That means, they can be struggling within, but they don't show you that because, that's something, so you have to just learn to be kind, what they're saying to the person that you come in contact. And that really takes you from focusing on self only. A lot of us have been conditioned to be selfish, but for collective progress, we have, there are levels to it. We have to take care of ourselves, but we also have to understand that we are here for others. And if we focus solely on self, we may not even achieve what we are capable of achieving, because sometimes the next level really involve others. As I was reading a quote this morning that says, I help so many people to reach the mountaintop. But what happened, I realized that I also got to the mountaintop. And I was like, man, you know what? This is so profound, because, helping those people to get there, guess what? You're going with them because, you're helping them up. And sometimes, that's the difference in what's possible for us as individual and also as a collective. So I really, appreciate you bring that up, because those who are listening, we have to understand that we have to play a role in achieving the goals that will benefit more than self. But to what we can achieve as a group to make things better for the next generation. So that leads me to my next question. What are some key steps we need to take to strengthen Black male unity and collaboration? What, from your perspective, what are some key steps we need to take to strengthen our unity and collaboration?
Yeah, the first thing that I can think of is really not thinking about any other brother as a threat. Think about them as someone that you can learn from, right? And that is, I feel like that's truly the first step. There's always going to be someone that's better than you in some realm. It doesn't matter what area you're from, what institution you go to. You're going to find that, right? Whatever job you may have, there's someone that's going to have certain levels of skills, insights, perspective, and experiences that are more than yours. Think about what you can learn from them, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's someone that you don't necessarily see yourself connecting with, observe. Think about how you can just take those insights, those perspectives, those moves, and incorporate that into yourself. Not to mimic or mirror that, but there. I think that's well. They say that that's the greatest form of flattery, right?
Yeah.
Seeing the behaviors of others and replicating those. But I would say that's the first step. I think once we get to that point, many of us have. I think about me being, a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I look at fraternity brothers all the time. that have a breadth of insights and expertise, and have learned so much from many of them. And I currently serve on the Go to High School, Go to College National Committee. And wow, we have numerous amounts of insights. And I mean, from guys that are somewhat fresh out of undergrad to those that have been in education for decades. I am learning so much from them and what they have to offer to ensure that we do our best to create that pipeline of just youth going to college. So, not seeing it as a threat, we're here to help one another. Think about what you can glean from it.
That is really profound and important. Not seeing each other as a threat, because I think some people may think, oh, if he's doing that, man, I don't think I'll be able to do it, and I'm not going to, go over there or reach out or connect. But one of the things that I find myself doing, I like to connect with others who are actually doing the work, because guess what? It cuts the effort for me. So when I learn from you, man, you may spend so many years learning. So I like to be in those spaces. And even if to you may be better than me, it doesn't matter to me. I'm here to be inspired. I'm here to learn, and hopefully, by being in the space, someone will learn from me. But I like to be around people that are knowledgeable or have the experience, especially the experience and knowledge that I don't have. And that's one thing that we have to get comfortable with as Black men. Don't feel threatened by others or intimidated by other Black men, but be inspired, um, to say the least, of those who are in spaces doing the work and making an impact. Because just like yourself, you're going to have a more direct knowledge on first gen students than I do, because that's not something that I spend a lot of time focusing on. Because that's what you're going to be doing. That's what you want. That's where you want to make the impact. So it's great for me to connect with you, being that I do work with students at times. I do, coach and mentor students. So there will be things that you can share that I may not be paying attention to. So that's one thing we must do: get comfortable with being around others who have knowledge and experience that we don't have, and don't feel any type of way for what they can do and what they can accomplish. So that leads me to this question: how do we move from just talking about solutions to implementing real lasting change?
Ooh, that's a loaded one. The lasting change, I think just more community, more opportunities to connect. There are opportunities to do so. And sometimes it doesn't have to be formalized. I think it's just a matter of seeking it out. Uh, One thing that I do think about often is how I feel like some people have lost the read of moments and people, and just being able to take advantage of, those moments that could really just be organic. I think we all can think about a time where we reflected on a missed opportunity, and it could have been, hey, you know what? I met this person. I really should have gotten their information so I could have followed up with them. Just I would say try to minimize those types of moments as much as possible. Minimize the reflecting on them and not being able to have those moments is what I'm saying. So just seize that, seize the opportunity. I think about one of my good friends and colleagues who realized that there was an absence of narratives of Black first gen students. And what she and another colleague of mine did, they both assembled and talked to different individuals that we were all in the same circle and we all knew, well, most of us knew each other, but there were some common ties there, and then assembled us. And then there was this group known as the Black First Gen Collective that's been going ever since. So I that those types of moments, like creating those think tanks. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be formal. Just get some people together, like minded, that you think that I can get something from these people, not in a transactional type of way, but in a way that we all can benefit from one another. And doing that, and that can build, friendships, that can build professional bonds, that can build just insights. Like just doing that really helps to strengthen that muscle. So just seeking the community, that's something that I feel like we've kind of lost. That muscle has been weakened a bit in our society, and taking the time to do that will really get us in a different spot.
I do agree, and just to sum up what you just said, as I'm listening to it, which is really important, is to see the need and act on it. And once we act on it, we will find like-minded people who will be able to support the initiative. And I like how you stated it, that it doesn't have to be a formal organization, but a group of individuals who want to see change and decide to work together to create that change. Because if we're going to get things done, right, we have to act on whatever ideas we come up with to make the change. And just as you shared, they saw the need and decided to act on it, and start to have those conversation around what's possible and how change can take place. um, I know we're getting close to the end of today's conversation. We're definitely not going to get to all the questions, but I want to ask a few more questions before we end the conversation today, which is on intentional leadership and legacy. What does intentional leadership means to you, and how do you embody it in your work? So those who, especially aspiring leaders, maybe hearing from you and what they may be able to apply to their life.
Yeah, yeah. Intentional leadership. I've been in this headspace recently, to where I recently had an employee transition to another role, but I was really proud that they were content with the work that they did. And with that, I'm saying that I was also happy and proud for them. I supported them as they sought to transition out, because I knew they wanted more. And this particular role that they were in, it just wasn't offering that. And that's okay. But I knew that in that moment, what I could do is be as supportive as possible to help that person go to grow. And I've had individuals do that for me. And it wasn't always that way, but I've had individuals to do that for me. And it eases that transition so much more. You leave with less guilt. And also, that's a colleague now that you can keep in contact with, and they feel more willing to check in with you and exchange ideas. So I would say invest in people, look at where they are, and help to enrich their skills, build those up, and also, when applicable, give them the opportunity to shine when they can. I often think about one previous role that I had, where I managed an individual who was not necessarily the most confident. Um, and when we got into certain meetings, I was like, okay, man, I think I know what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let you lead this particular segment of the meeting.
And I really like those areas that you mentioned, especially when it comes down to being an intentional leader. One, as you mentioned, on the get go, to be supportive or supported. support the person or those who are in your care as the leader. But you say invest in people, enrich, help them to enrich their skill and give them opportunity to shine, which goes back to what you had shared about not feeling threatened. Because if you are secure in yourself, it becomes easier to give other people the opportunity to shine because they may be shining in an area that you may not be strong in. So it goes right back to, not feeling threatened by those around us. Because if we are confident within ourselves, which as leaders we're supposed to, be confident, because if we're not, we're going to sabotage those other people and maybe you want to manipulate them and use power to lead instead of, being the person there to help them to become the best that they can be. But I really like those areas of invest in people and help them to enrich their skills and give them the opportunity to shine. So my next question to you is, what are some of the most critical lessons you have learned about building a lasting legacy?
The old saying, I can't think of the attribution at the moment. I know many individuals have said it, but really leaving with, how do you make them feel? And not just focusing on what you did. So that is at the core of what I think about as far as my leadership. Also, I think about my late great grandfather, who was just the kindest man I could think of, and I'm honored to bear his name. He just loved people and was just someone who validated and affirmed. And I try to take that on. Even though I lost him at a young age, there are so many principles that I remember from him. And that's what sticks out to me as far as qualities that I tend to keep and make sure that I move forward in life with.
Well, but as you stated, he passed away when you were young, but you still live by those principles. And that's where good leadership comes in. Because a person may leave where you are and go to a different organization or a different environment, but they're going to remember how you make them feel. Because if you give an individual an opportunity to shine, to showcase their strengths, whenever they're talking about a leader, they're going to remember, Dr. Winfield gave me this opportunity. And if he didn't, maybe I would step out on faith to go after what I always want to go after. But he saw it in me and now see where I'm at. And I think that is important, to give individuals an opportunity to shine and to become the best that they can be. All right. So we're going to go back into mentorship a little bit before we ask that final question before we close out today. How can we create a culture of mentorship that ensures the next generation is equipped for success?
I think in order to build that mentorship culture, we it's just that investment. It's just that investment and really thinking about that and what we can do for others to ensure that um, they get those skills and the skills that they have, that we look at them and just empower them to be who they can be, right? Otherwise, we're just letting them falter. I think too many times people are put into a box and they're not empowered to show what they can do. And then they go into other spaces, other workplaces, and they minimize themselves. So really building people up, not to inflate egos, not to diminish them, but finding it's not even a mid ground. It needs to be more than that to ensure that we give that level of investment for them.
I think that that's important. Build them up and create that space where they feel comfortable sharing, where they feel comfortable, challenging themselves. Because sometimes, if you're not in an environment where you feel comfortable, you may not challenge yourself because you may feel as if you're going to be judged. Having that judgment thinking that people will be judging you based on what you do, you may even volunteer in suppressing your own greatness. So we're at the top of the hour. I have two more questions that I want to ask before we close out today. But if you could leave one message for young black men striving for impact, what would it be?
One question, one suggestion.
If you could leave one message.
One message. Got
Yeah.
it. Ooh. One message would be to just do your best to seek joy, because that's usually not at the forefront of what we how we operate. I think for many of us, it's the old adage of work, provide. That's important, and I feel that I value that as well. But in this season of life, just thinking about longevity, what can you do that fills your bucket? And try to pour into those. It might be elements of your work. That's perfectly fine. But think about what else you can do to be better and to improve your livelihood.
Well, I think that is important. To find ways to feel good about oneself, because you can work and still don't feel good about yourself. But and you find a lot that happens a lot, especially to us as black men. Because we have been told to go and work and provide, and yet sometimes we don't feel good within ourselves because we don't feel validated, and because we may be doing something that we don't even enjoy doing. So that's a great reminder. So my final question to you before we finish today, based on our conversation, what is one commitment you can make today to increase your impact and transformation?
As far as that impact, I would have to say just really, I reside in a new area than what I was previously. So rebuilding my connections is something that I'm seeking to do. So really taking those insights that I had in my previous home and bringing that to where I am currently is what I know that I can do, and bring those insights and also learn. So it'll be a reciprocal circle of commitment, learning, and engaging, so that other men can see what they can do and also affirm me and build me up as well.
That's really good, a good one right there. And sometimes we can be in the same environment that we have always been, but we still need to rebuild some of those connections going forward, because almost everything we need to tap into the people that we are connected to, because they can hold the key to the next opportunity. So, Dr. Winfield, it's a pleasure, having you here again on the Black Male Impact. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, your insights, and perspective with the audience today. As always, listeners, it's a pleasure for us to bring guests that we believe will share insights, perspectives, and knowledge that we all can apply. It may not be what we're going to apply today, and it may not be for us, but what we learn can be shared with someone who really needs it, so they can advance in their life. So thanks again for being here. But
Thank you.
also, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn mostly. Mostly, feel free to follow me on there. J Winfield 4 is where I can be located. I am also on X as well. Also J Winfield 4. Notice there's a theme there. I'm the fourth James Winfield in my family, so that's the tie there. But yeah, those two platforms would be the most. I would say on LinkedIn, I'm the most active, and that's where most of my content.
Okay, thank you. And listeners, please continue to support us as we continue this journey to share knowledge and insight and perspectives with you. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. Thanks again for being here with us.